Welcome back to Love and Law. My name is Virginia Warren. I'm a lawyer and conflict alchemist and co-founder of the organisation called Lawyers for Love. At Lawyers for Love, we see that the legal system in its present form uses fear-based techniques to solve problems. It effectively says, love thy neighbour, else we will punish you. It acts as if you still need a parent. Lawyers for Love say to solve a problem, you need to move to a higher level of consciousness than was used to create the conflict. Love says, love thy neighbour, and if you can't, we'll show you how to do that. It teaches you how to self-regulate. This is what we call Lovers of the Essence Consciousness, or Leotech for short. In these live broadcasts, we're showcasing lawyers globally who are bringing their unique style of love into legal practice. And today it's my great pleasure to introduce Kirsty Salvestro. Now, Kirsty always knew she wanted to work in an area that involved law and helping families. Initially, she wanted to be in the police force, but this was ruled out due to the height restrictions at 162 centimetres. It was apparently not tall enough to be a police officer at that time. She grew up in a broken home. Her mother left her 3 brothers and her with her dad when she was 11 years old. Being the bossy only girl, she took charge of the household. Her early days continued to be tricky, more so when her father met a new lady. Those years were particularly unpleasant for her and her brothers and resulted in her leaving home when she was just 16 years old. She battled through high school, working every evening and weekend on the Coles checkouts, just trying to stay above water. It was when her Year 12 legal studies teacher told her that she would make a wonderful lawyer that she made the decision to do just that. She pushed through university whilst working 2 jobs and was truly lucky to have met some life-changing, inspiring humans who helped make her path possible. She started from the bottom up, happy to be a receptionist and secretary, to move to the role of conveyancer and paralegal, and then junior lawyer when she ultimately graduated. Through many of life's twists and turns, ups and downs in life and legal practice, Kirsty became tired of fighting. She felt like she'd been fighting her whole life. She saw couples walking away from the process, soul destroyed, bitter, and not to mention spending thousands of dollars that did not sit well with her. So the change in her life led her to realise she needed to make a difference somehow. She trained as a mediator and created Flourish Family Law, a boutique firm practicing solely in out-of-court solutions, focusing on kindness and peace. This led her to write a book. What are we fighting for? A peaceful pathway for separating couples, which guides couples on reaching amicable agreements. She said the book was so much fun to write and publish that it's now led her to create an online course and allowed her to build up the divorce coaching side of her business. She couldn't be more thrilled with where she is right now and honestly wouldn't change any of her history as it has led her to right where she is today. Well, welcome, Kirsty. What a beautiful story. What a beautiful way into legal practice with all that life experience. Tell me, so your legal, in Year 12 legal studies, they suggested you make a great lawyer. So what were the steps you had to take to get into law school?
Well, hi, Virginia. Lovely to be here. Thank you. Look, I guess it was just the standard sort of steps. I mean, I did get a lot of references from my teacher. So my legal studies teacher was just a beautiful lady. I have very fond memories of her. And, I think a lot of Year 12 students, I know my daughter's in Year 11 at the moment and going through that, what on earth do I do with my life? And that question gets asked to you a lot. I really had just thought, I just want to secure a job and, looked at the police force option. Obviously that didn't work. What I did, I just obviously just worked really, really hard through Year 12 to get the marks that I needed, and then applied for a couple of courses. I got into one in Melbourne and at Canberra Uni, and ultimately I ended up going to Canberra Uni to start there. So, yeah.
And so you're in New South Wales now. So then you moved on from Canberra, which is amazing. So we're moving around the place. That's beautiful. So then you graduated and you were working in a firm at the time?
So look, my history's very long.
No, that's okay.
At the time when I was at school, so I grew up in Albury, Wodonga. I was actually an army brat as well on top of all of that. My dad was in the army, yeah. And so we lived in Wodonga and I went to high school in Wodonga and I was working there. And then, so when I started uni at Canberra, transferred. As I said, I was working at Coles, and I did a transfer and worked at Coles in Belconnen. And then from there, so my partner, who I later married, he actually got into the Defence Force as well. He was a psychologist. And so we ended up moving around a lot because of that. So I ultimately ended up transferring to University of New England so that I could do my study via distance. Now, to do that, the first stop after Canberra was actually Brisbane. So I worked as an article clerk for a year in Brisbane, learnt so much there and had so much support, but still studied full-time but by distance. We were there for a year. Then we went to Sydney for 2 or 3 years and did the same thing, worked as a secretary for a couple of smaller firms, kept studying. And then I got to Canberra back again. I went all the way around. Ended up in Canberra, and that's where I finished. I had 1 more year left to go. Finished there, did my practical legal training and stay working there. So
that's amazing. Yeah, and it is amazing because there's people think there's one sort of path in, but I think life experience is a really great path to particularly for lawyers, to relate to real humans. Some of us go into the path where we're, straight out of school, straight into law school, and you're insulated from life. And I think you need that skill set to really, in family law particularly.
Yeah, and I think that some of the best family lawyers in particular, and any lawyers really that I've met, are people who really have some amazing life skills. I don't necessarily think that, getting the highest mark at uni is the answer to all of the, to being the best lawyer. Definitely life experience and people who can really communicate with their clients and do all those things make such a difference.
They don't really teach that in law school, do they? It's such a shock. You get the practical legal training now, or articles back in the day, which I did, because I went to New England as well. I did it. I went in as a receptionist when my son after he was born. And then I started. I studied worked full time, studied as well, a half load, and with a toddler, and it was amazing. But that's how I did mine, and it gave me so much more of a rounded perspective on working in a firm, finding out what this was about, and really thinking this law course doesn't really relate to what's going on in real life. We can read the cases and say, oh, this was the outcome of that case. There's so you can see the precedent there and what have you. But when you're just dealing with everyday people that are coming to you, sometimes it's more of a practical solutions, isn't it?
Sorry. Look, I think
no, go for it. Yeah.
That I learned was, being a secretary and a receptionist, I really got to know the clients a bit better. And I'm not saying that, people that go straight through uni and don't have that experience, that they won't do well, but I just found it practically so good. So I really understood just the basic stuff we needed from a client. But it also helped me administratively as well. Like I knew how to balance a trust account because I did that as a secretary. I knew how to, to set up a file and to do the really basic stuff that, and I still love doing that sort of stuff. I find that practical stuff really rewarding when it's not just you hand it off to someone. It's really great to be able to do those things. But I learned so much in all those roles. Obviously, I loved actually doing the reception sort of secretarial type work. I learned and I was studying law. So for me, it was great when something would come up. Certainly the conveyancing with the processes and everything. When I did the conveyancing for a year and I did that in Brisbane, that taught me so much. And when I actually moved to Canberra, it's funny. I actually moved to the firm. So all the firms I were in, I'd have to say none of them were actually family law firms. There was one of my lovely, bosses that I worked for, he did do family law, but it wasn't a sole family law firm. That's where I picked up my love for family law. And I've always known I wanted to work with the families. But initially when I finished my degree, I actually started working in personal injury. And I did 2 years of that before my daughter was born, and it was really tough because I actually worked on catastrophic injuries. But again, I was working with families trying to help them, work through this because that was obviously some really traumatic times. And being able to have experienced I did a bit of business, and then obviously the personal injury to then get to my, okay, I really love the family law. I got to sort of experience everything, where I think if you jump straight in to, a set thing, you don't get that experience.
Yeah, I agree. Particularly, when you're doing family law, you do need to know a little bit of conveyancing, a little bit of estate law, a little bit of everything, because it's about a family. That's the nature of that type of practice. So now you're saying that you went through a whole lot of, you saw, people fighting and losing thousands of dollars and things when you're practicing family law. So what inspired you to shift more into what you're doing now, keeping everything out of court the best way you can?
To be honest, it just became a really personal thing for me. I would go into work day after day, and I would get really upset myself by a lot of the letters that I was receiving, by the tone of things, the messages I was getting, and to have to pass that on to people and be that person sort of in the middle and do that. I guess I just really couldn't handle it anymore. It did come at a bit of a difficult time in my life. So I actually separated myself from my first husband. And that was, sort of, I think it was 12 years ago now. And look,
Time flies.
I know. We managed to walk through ours. Obviously, I get the pain. It's a really tricky time. But we managed to work through our process quite easily, I guess is the best way to put it, and calmly. But so then I've remarried, and my husband and I, about 5 years ago, well, it was 5 years ago, we tried to have more children. And we went through a really tough time where we lost 5 babies during that period. And so for me, it was a very, it was a tricky time, but it was also a complete realization of what I did and didn't want to put up with in my life. And I know that sounds weird, but sometimes it takes a big event to just go, hey, you know what, I'm not going to walk into work every day, and I don't want to hear this sort of thing. And because I guess I'd had the previous experience from myself, I'd seen some really positive people walk through their process, and I just didn't want to deal with the fighting anymore. I just basically said to my husband, look, I just can't do this anymore. I don't want to be here. It's making me miserable, and I feel like I'm making other people miserable. So I actually took 6 months off to decide what am I going to do. And in that time, that's where I went, you know what, I love family law and I love helping families, but I can't do it the way that I was doing it. So that's the big switch for me. So 5 years ago, just went, nah, that's it, not doing it that way anymore. And it was the best decision I ever made. No.
So tell me how you're doing it instead.
Yeah. So I was in a partnership. And so I live in Cooma in New South Wales, so a rural community, but we're very close to Canberra. So my court was always the Canberra court. So what I did is I just obviously at that point left my partnership to just sort of figure out how do I set this up. I knew that I only wanted to do out-of-court solutions. So I trained as a mediator and did my accredited mediation training, which I really enjoyed and met some really lovely people doing that. And then really just started from scratch, I suppose. I've been in Cooma since my daughter was born, so she's 17. Okay. So I've been here a long time. So a lot of people know me. And I must say, being in a smaller community probably made a massive difference. So many people knew me and had referred people to me and knew the way that, so even though I was fighting in that particular way, I think I still morally in the way I behaved, people, really it resonated with some people. So I had a pretty good referral base and a lot of people knew me. So I started up just pretty much started my website, wrote a bit of a business plan for myself and said, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. It was really hard in the first few months because people go, oh, wow, you're back working. And then they'd go, oh, I want to go to court and I want to do this. So I really had to grab it and go, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is how I can help. If you really don't want to do it that way, I'd refer them on to some really great colleagues. But so set up the business just saying mediation, collaborative family law. I also did my collaborative family law training. I'd done some earlier, but I did a refresher just because I thought that, I love collaborative family law. I think that's a great way, if people do need the support of their lawyers. Mediation, collaborative, and then really just kept working on it, plugging away at it every day to really kind of send the message to, marketing wise and to all my clients that this is the way I'm going to do it. If you come to me, I'm not going to go anywhere near the courtroom. No.
Yeah, and you're saying you're not going near the courtroom because of the fighting. Is that why? Is that the reason? Is the negative energy there? Or
Yeah, it is. It is really negative. I also just think that the impact on families is huge. You know, and I honestly believe, and as much as I do get a lot of people say, look, you know, unfortunately, maybe my spouse is really negative and I can't get past that. I think that if you work really hard, you can at least get a lot more of a positive outcome pushing those values. I mean, I really think we just need to change the way we're talking about divorce. And that's what I wanted to actually show people. It shouldn't be divorce means let's fight, let's hate each other, let's be horrible. Because I had people come to me who are just, look, I'm sadly decided we can no longer live together and we don't want to be together, but they were still actually on quite amicable terms. As soon as the lawyers got involved, it just blew up. It just became negative, negative, negative. So you know, I guess I really try and change I'm hoping, you know, my mission is to change the way people are actually, you know, looking at divorce, saying, look, what divorce is, yes, you've both got a problem. You've got exactly the same problem, which is sorting this out. Why are we fighting about it and trying to get them to work together? Now, obviously, my methods are not just, I mean, obviously, practically, I use mediation and collaborative family law, but I also work a lot on behaviour. You know, getting people to follow their morals and really think about their behavior and the way, you know, they act with each other and being kind to each other. Like just that word kindness, for me, one can just, you know, choose a kind response or, you know, and it doesn't always have to be, you know, I use the example of text messages, I suppose. Like sometimes the kindest thing to do is just to ignore it. You know, there's lots of different ways to be kind. So I really work on those things with my clients as well. So it's not just the practical things, it's the more emotional things and getting people set up with a really good supportive team to make sure that they're working through things. And maybe they're not ready to start the process yet and really pull back and try and get them the support they need and the love and the kindness in first before we start negotiating anything for them.
Yeah. Because when we can recognize it, and I think that's true, when we can recognize that hurt people, then yes, you can step back and say, well, I see that you're hurting. So it's not really directed at me, what you're saying, you know, when the nasty messages get sent everywhere. But unfortunately, the legal system, the way it is, exacerbates it, and people want to be position-based when they move into a dispute and say, all right, let's defend you. What are you defending them from? Let's get you as much property as possible, like you have no ability to go out and live another life and create more for yourself, or stay connected with that person. And okay, it didn't work out. The relationship didn't work out the way you hoped. When we move together, we move apart. But unfortunately, some in the system want to drive that wedge and make sure you stay apart for the benefit of the, as you say, thousands of hard-earned dollars that you're going to pay the lawyer to continue that separation.
You know, and whether that comes with, you know, I'm not saying this works with everyone, but whether it is a life experiencing, I mean, I know myself that the money, you know, you get people come in and, you know, we talk about money as a result, but in my mind, that's not the result that we should be looking for in family law. It shouldn't be who gets the house and who gets more money or what the percentage is. It really should be about how do we make this family that unfortunately no longer can be together work, but in a very different way. And that's not the answer to that is just not money. I mean, it might be helpful in some scenarios. And I think as lawyers, if you've never been through a separation and you, or perhaps you're a very litigious person and you really love to do the fighting thing, I just feel that just doesn't work well for family law. I mean, yes, there are some cases where we'll fall into that category. And I think they're very minimal though. And the problem I think I found is too many of them were going to the dispute phase where they could really just stay in this, you know, kind of calmer way, working through it together. But there's all these little boxes that they need to tick before they can kind of move on. And if they're not getting the direction or the information from their support team to work on those things first, it just straight away becomes conflict. And, you know, I just think honestly, if I'd taken a poll over the last 18 years of the family law clients I've had that really should not have ended up fighting, you know, it'd be over 50%, if not, I mean, well over more. But I'm just saying that, you know, as an example, like there's thousands of couples there that ended up fighting and hating each other that really, didn't need to be there. And that impacts on the families, that impacts on the kids. I mean, I know myself as a kid of separation that, when you've got two parents that are being horrid to each other, it's really hard. You put the children in a really horrible position where they can't sit them together on a wedding, later down the track. I spoke to someone the other day who said, and she's an adult in her 30s, and even now she can't have her parents in the same room. And you think at 30 you should be able to say, hey, no, parents, but they just can't.
Grow up.
It's so traumatic. It's really, and all that comes back though to emotions, about people being really emotional and choosing those emotional negative responses rather than flipping it and going, look, maybe I need forgiveness and kindness and calm and love and all those sorts of things to try and get through this. It's not easy for anyone.
How can we bring that? No, that's right. How can we bring it in? And, the way Lawyers for Love look at it is that how am I responding to this? What's in this for me? Why am I responding so negatively? Why do I feel like that? Why do I expect this person to be X, Y, Z? Why am I expecting that from somebody else?
Yeah, and I think that's
I can't control them.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to bring yourself back to go, I can choose how I respond to this. So if someone is being negative, you can choose a completely different response, and it'll potentially change the outcome. And absolutely, as you said, you cannot make someone else act in a particular way, but you can certainly set an example, and you can certainly show them that it can be calmer if, and it makes you feel so much better. I know myself that if I, even with my kids, if you choose a negative response where you, yell at them or do something, you feel terrible afterwards, or you think, oh, did I do that very well? Where I know that if I really think about the way that I'm, responding, or even starting a conversation, it just makes you feel so much better yourself. Like, long term.
Take the higher ground. That's it. Yeah. But I think family law is a beautiful catalyst for evolution for a human. If you go into it and say, why am I responding like this? Why do I have all these expectations from another human? How are they controlling my life? How can I shift the way I see the world? People can come out the other end so much more evolved than when they went in. And, that's for lawyers that, then I think it reflects back on the lawyer dealing in that situation. They feel so, wow, we got through this, and you feel better for the process, even though it's, ugliness sometimes, and you're in pain, people are hurting. We expected a different outcome for our relationship. But of course, when we're moving through relationships with people, there's always something. We're in relationship to something at all times. And I think that's teaching us everything. We're teaching and we're learning from everybody that we encounter. And I think family law is really optimal for that situation. And for the lawyer to actually go through that with somebody is really rewarding for the lawyer as well, rather than, I think, as you were saying, going through a fight with somebody and helping them fight, it's draining the lawyer as well. That's why we're not feeling the best when we're in that situation, when we're not that kind of a person. And I think more lawyers like you are really shifting into this space, saying, there is a better way of doing it, because even just on the general canvas of humanity at the moment, we're seeing all this discord. And it's no different from being in relationship to your spouse than being in relationship to someone on social media. How are you responding? You can't control how they think, how they feel. You control how you feel. I think that's fundamental to it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing for lawyers is, and I know because I've had some of these comments thrown at me before, that, doing it my way, the kind of way, is almost like taking a step down or a step back and not fighting for your clients, where I actually just passionately believe the opposite. I think I'm doing so much more for my client. And to be honest, it actually creates even so when we talk about, a lot of lawyers love a challenge. I mean, we're all, this is just something that we as lawyers, it's probably why we became lawyers. We're perfectionists. We love a challenge, those things. But you can do that in this way as well. I mean, it is such a challenge to be able to sit there and make a client really change their thinking and think that's outside of their box of, instead of this one mindset of this is the answer, really work with them and with the other couple or with the other lawyer, however it might be. Like for me, that's a massive challenge. And just to actually pull yourself back, like, when I get a really negative letter from another lawyer, or something that's very antagonistic or upsetting for the client, it's such a challenge for me to figure out, how do I flip that? How do I help my client take this negativity, or at least tone it down so that they're not getting the impact of this thing, and also at the same time trying to get the other lawyer to work with me. And I found all those things really challenging. So I definitely haven't removed the difficulty and the challenge in family law for my clients and for me. It's just a different way of looking at it and a different way of problem solving.
It is interesting, though, the power of the word. And I realized this one day. I had a client sitting in front of me who said, and he was just bringing in that first letter that just says, oh, we act for, and let's try and settle it out of court. It was just a very inane letter. He said, do you know what it feels like to get a letter from a lawyer? And it was that moment. This was quite a few years ago now. I thought, no, I don't. But I recently went through my own family law matter, and I had a litigious other side, and now I do. And it was awful. It was absolutely horrible, because they know which buttons to press, of course. But as coming through the lawyer, I found when I would read the letters, and because I was very neutral, I could say, all right, well, before we read this letter, before I send it to you, this is what it's saying. There's a whole lot of words in there that don't actually mean much. This is what it's saying. It's just asking you to send me a few bank statements. Could you do that, before I send it out? Because, you have to soften that. It really was very, very powerful. And I think lawyers, I actually wondered one day, I wonder if lawyers could be liable in negligence for, PTSD, for exacerbating the trauma that someone's going through a relationship breakdown, and then they're just poking the bear, just keep poking. Why? I wonder why.
You have to think about, like, why, when we write a letter that's, say, for someone on the other side, we really need to be very aware and conscious of what that is going to mean. Not just supporting it, doing it for your client, but it will impact your client if you create this really negative, pathway for them. We really have to just be so aware of what we do to our clients, of how we speak to the solicitor on the other side, what letters we send to, that people are going to read. And, look at, as we've just said, there are so many people that have been through a separation. And I think we forget when we get into lawyer mode about that personal side of things and how that actually feels for that person getting that letter. Like, I myself look back and think, gosh, when I just followed the process, which I was taught to do, how many people read that and thought, what a horrible human being you are for sending that letter. And I don't think I've ever written anything terribly disgusting, but I'm sure there's something that I've written that has had a really negative and upsetting impact on someone, in the last 18 years, where I guess I've just moved to a completely different mindset. That anything I write, no matter what my client says, I just have to say to them, this is how I do it. I am not going to write that. And, my clients, people go, do people really want to do that? I'm like, 100%. My clients actually often will come back to me and say, thank you so much for keeping this calm, stopping the fighting, for doing that. They actually thank you at the end of it, that it didn't become, terrible.
That's beautiful.
It's really rewarding.
Because you have to go on in life. The children are still your children. You can't get it. You can't move. A lot of people want to run, but you can't. You are connected to this situation. You're connected to the communities, and everything's still there. It's nice to be dignified. So now tell me also, you wrote your book, and then you've converted it into an online course. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's still in the motions. Basically, with my book, I set it out in a 6-step framework. So it's very much, the first one's very much on that keeping calm and getting a support team around you. And, some people might stay in that phase for a while, and then I move it on through getting them prepared so that they can actually negotiate. And the negotiations, obviously, one is just allowing people to do it completely themselves, and then what they need to do once they do reach that agreement. The other one's explaining the mediation and the collaborative processes, so the processes I use. So what I did, I then had a lot of people that had used the book, but some people don't like to read. So I don't really want to read a book. So I'm in the process, and I'm just running sort of a foundation round at the moment to get people in and just make sure that I've got it right. Really working hard on that to, pretty much it follows the same process, but I've made it very practical. Like, I love organizing things. So I've done some, worksheets and things that people can start working through and looking at the support they can get, the options for settlement, and what information they might need before they can move on. So it's much more of a practical course than the book is probably just more theory about those things. My book does have some worksheets and tips and things in it, but I've kind of really gone to the next level to make it really practical for clients.
And that is beautiful, because it's giving people empowerment, because I think the lawyers, in a traditional sense, took people's power. It's just like, I know what's best for you. We'll do it this way. Yeah, give me your instructions, but I'm telling you what we're going to do. Yeah. And you're helping people being empowered is really valuable for them as well. They feel that they're part of the process. They have some choices to make, because even in the system that it is, and it's the best that we've got. This is that legal system is the best system we have at this particular point in time. I have another point of view on that, but just the same. At the moment, that really draws people's power away. And so what you're doing is giving them their power back and saying, okay, these are the steps, and this is what you can look forward to in the processes, and this is how you can be involved. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. So when will your course be ready? Are you able to tell us that?
Well, I'm actually running the foundation round just for a limited number of people, and it's starting on the 24th of this month.
Okay, lovely.
And then obviously once I've just made sure it's perfect, I'll do a more of a public launch. And I know, being a lawyer, I still have that little bit of perfectionist thing where I've got to get the aim is just to really get it out there for people, so that as you say, that people can have that ability to work on it as much as they want themselves, or get help at any stage. And so it's been, I originally, when I wrote the book, I'd done a very basic online course and released that, but I really wasn't happy with it. I felt they needed more support from me to get through some of those stages. So I've kind of tweaked it a little bit more and added some more stuff into it. So it's much more intense and got a lot more, as I said, worksheets and do-it-yourself things and
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's absolutely amazing. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for doing that for people. And so on a final note, what would be one tip you would give to lawyers if you were going to say to them just to bring some more love into legal practice for themselves?
Well, I think just my big thing is follow your own morals. I have my set values and my morals that I want to do. So in everything I do, whether it's with my kids, whether it's with my clients, I just want to stick to those values and those morals. So I really think that don't listen to what other people are saying and telling you must do it this way or you must do this. It's about you. And I think to be really happy as a lawyer, you have to do what you love and what you think works. And nobody else's opinion matters, really. As long as you're doing it the way and you're happy and you're helping people, then that's what we're meant to do.
Yeah, that's so right. Being yourself, being authentic. This is part of your life, being a lawyer. If you're choosing to be a lawyer, it's part of your life. It's not a separate part of you. It's through your whole life. And I think that's what we've forgotten. So thank you so much for being with us today, Kirsty. Really appreciate that. Yeah, look out for Kirsty's course if you're separating. And her book, we've got the details in the description below. And if you're a lawyer who brings love into law in your own unique way, we'd love to hear from you and showcase your work too. So thanks so much, Kirsty. Thanks to everyone for listening today.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.